Welcome back to Pastoral Ministry 401. This is the second in a two-part series on communication, bridging the communication gap in ministry, essential skills for effective ministry, and this is part number 2. In this lesson, we will focus on the art of listening, the power of silence, and the practical ways to engage in meaningful conversation. What should you expect to learn as we talk about these basic communication skills? Well, first, how to be a good listener. There's awesome power in the listening ear, and I want you to harness that power. Second, we will talk about skills that can help you learn to be a better listener. Some disciplines you can practice that will help you begin to master the art of listening. And then we'll look at several ways to use silence, because this is a very powerful tool in communication. Everyone wants to be a good listener, but there are certain keys to becoming a good listener. I want to share a few of those with you today. Listening inertia refers to the initial resistance we often feel when trying to engage fully with someone speaking. Starting with determination is crucial. It's like giving yourself a strong, clear, "now hear this" command, breaking through any initial reluctance. Research shows that intentional listening, when approached with a sense of purpose, significantly enhances retention and understanding. To practice this, focus on being present and mentally instruct yourself to tune in fully. This mental shift can help combat the temptation to daydream or mentally wander, allowing you to connect more deeply with the speaker. It's important to critically analyze the facts presented during communication. Are they accurate? Or are they being used merely to prove a point or to bolster a case? You may need to locate distortions or deletions in the message. Words that have been exaggerated or omitted need to be identified. Cognitive psychology research reveals that listeners often unconsciously fill in gaps in communication based upon their biases or past experiences. Therefore, careful examination of facts without assuming or making inferences prematurely helps ensure that you receive the most accurate version of the message. Nonverbal cues such as tone of voice, facial expression, gestures, and body language often convey more meaning than the words themselves. Only 7% of a total message comes from the words we use, while 93% derive from the tone of voice and body language. By paying attention to these elements, we can identify whether the sender's words align with their nonverbal cues or if there is a deeper, perhaps unspoken message being communicated. For instance, a person might say, "I'm fine," but their slumped posture and downcast eyes suggest otherwise. It's easy to follow personal biases, whether based on age, education, or background, to interfere with listening. However, when we let prejudice block our listening, we miss valuable insights that the speaker may have to offer. Prejudices act as filters that shape how we perceive the speaker and their message. Research suggests that prejudice significantly impairs our ability to listen empathetically, thus reducing the effectiveness of communication. To overcome this, you need to consciously decide to set aside any preconceived notions and listen carefully, as the speaker may offer a perspective that could enrich your understanding to help resolve issues. Distractions, both external and internal, can greatly diminish our ability to listen effectively. External distractions may include noise, interruptions, or peripheral activities, while internal distractions often take the form of wandering thoughts, stress, or even thinking about how to respond while the speaker is still talking. Research shows that multitasking or dividing attention between a speaker and other activities results in shallow listening and poor comprehension. To combat this, practice mindfulness. Focus on the speaker's words and nonverbal cues. By centering your attention on the message, you can prevent distractions from pulling you away. Focusing on the main message helps ensures that you track the conversation effectively. Try to anticipate where the speaker is going. If they stray or veer off, retrace your steps and rejoin the main point of discussion. Making mental summaries periodically allows you to keep track of the conversation. Research suggests that chunking information into manageable parts helps with processing and retaining key points. This technique enables you to grasp the broader context of the conversation and helps prevent misunderstandings. Examples or illustrations used in communication are valuable because they serve as reference points for understanding and remembering the message. Cognitive psychology supports the idea that people retain information more effectively when it's attached to a memorable image or a story. When a speaker provides an illustration, focus on that because it serves as an anchor, making the key points of the conversation easier to recall later. These examples also serve as visual or conceptual aids that help you stay engaged in the conversation and retain the message along with the discussion. Listening is not just about hearing words, but involves an active engagement with the speaker, interpreting verbal and nonverbal cues, and providing thoughtful responses. By overcoming inertia, focusing on facts, managing distractions, we can improve our listening skills and bridge the communication gap more effectively. The power of listening cannot be underestimated, and using silence creatively in our communication allows for deeper reflection and connection. As pastoral leaders, cultivating these skills is essential for building stronger relationships and ministering more effectively. What do you see on this slide? Well, you see a person silencing an audience, or perhaps an individual. There's great power in silence. On the next slide, we'll discuss how silence can be powerful and an effective communication tool. There are good ways to use silence. The silence of retreat, the silence of defiance, the silence of rebuke, and creative silence. Let's look at each of these. First, the silence of retreat. This is a sulking attitude, where someone cuts themselves off from the other person, refusing to talk, sometimes used between spouses or parents and children. Then there's the silence of defiance, where a person folds their arms and seems to say, non-verbally at least, okay, I'm listening, but you'd better impress me. Then there's the silence of rebuke, which can be an effective tool in a worship service. I recall when some teenagers were being disruptive, instead of calling them out, I simply stopped speaking and walked to the edge of the platform looking directly at them. They soon realized the silence, and when I had their attention, I resumed my message. That silence was more powerful than calling them out by name. Lastly, creative silence is used to allow someone to reflect on themselves, their failures and problems, and their future plans. Like Job's friends who sat in silence for 7 days, this method shows interest, and it takes discipline. Sometimes silence speaks more powerfully than words. I want to encourage you to learn how to use silence as a creative communication method. Communication is a complex but rewarding skill, especially in the ministry. As we've seen, being a good listener involves more than just hearing. It requires a deep level of attention, empathy, and interpretation. Silence, when used appropriately, can be a powerful way to communicate respect and thoughtfulness. By practicing these skills, you'll be better equipped to serve others in ministry, to listen with compassion, and to speak with clarity and wisdom. Remember, communication is not just about what we say, but how we listen and respond to others in meaningful ways. I encourage you to continue refining these skills in your daily conversations, and especially in your ministry work. This ends the presentation.